The Denver Nuggets have spent the last couple of seasons defying the odds. They weren't supposed to be a top seed. They weren't supposed to beat the Clippers. They weren't supposed to win enough games without Jamal Murray and then beat the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, you could even go back. They weren't supposed to come back from 3-1, not just once, but twice. Jamal Murray wasn't supposed to go on some unbelievable tear where he averaged 47 points a game over 3 games against the Jazz. 47 over 3 games is still one of the most insane 3-game stretches in playoff history that I just had to slip it in. I just had to slip it in because it's insane. It's insane. But that man I just mentioned, Jamal Murray, is a reason why I don't think it's an exaggeration. Well, it isn't an exaggeration to say this will be their toughest season yet. I believe the NBA is quite possibly the most even it has been in a very long time in terms of the depth of talent and how many teams are competitive. You have that, and then you have to factor in they don't have their second best player. I mentioned it. Yes, they did go 16-8 without Murray last season. That is good. But that's 24 games. That's a big difference between 82 games, and that's why it's going to be tough, because you can go 20 games without your second best player, and you can piece it together as you go. But a whole season without him, when you have these games where you need Murray to step up, you need that shot creation, that's where the challenge lies, and that's what the challenge ahead is for the Nuggets and Jokic, who, again, another player that defied the odds. He wasn't supposed to be an MVP, so this is a team that has done a lot of defying the odds, and this is they're gonna have to continue doing so, because without Jamal Murray, it's a lot tougher than it was previously. Now, before I get into that, if you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, or if you're already watching but you're not subscribed, that would also be much appreciated. I make content like this every single day, and doing so, it just helps out a ton, so that would be cool. I don't want to dwell on the Murray injury too much. Hopefully he's going to be back. ACL injuries are ones where we've seen a lot of people recover from it, so I wouldn't be too worried. Obviously, people still have to recover. It's still a long road ahead, but I would believe that he's going to get back. He's a hard worker, and he's just an underrated player. I just want to mention that as well, because I mentioned it in another video, but Jamal Murray is an incredibly underrated player, and I hope that he gets his respect eventually, because although his regular season performances haven't been breathtaking, he's improved. He improved last season, and I was looking forward to him in the playoffs, because if he's proven one thing in his career over not just one series against the Jazz, but multiple series, this man is a playoff performer, and I wanted to see him in the playoffs, but hopefully we'll get to see him back in the playoffs, maybe as soon as next year, possibly, maybe not, but at some point he will be back, and that's what I'm excited to see. But let's not dwell on that. We got to look ahead and see what the Nuggets can do to replace him. If there is a team where you look and you see depth of talent, and then obviously the obvious man in Nikola Jokic, who can make all of this talent around him just amplified, multiplied, whatever you want to say it. He'll make it better. He does make it better. If there is a team where they have that, it's the Denver Nuggets, because immediately I look at a guy who's a backup point guard, but he's a starting level point guard. There's no doubts about that in my opinion. Monte Morris is undoubtedly a starting level point guard. He's averaged around 10 points a game the last few seasons, which doesn't blow you away, but he does everything so well. Assist to turnover god, he shoots the ball, pick and roll is where he excels. 94th percentile a couple years ago. This season he was top 85 percentile again. That's where he really asserts himself as just a fantastic pick and roll ball handler. This is a smart player that's only 26 as well. I think he can still improve. I'm excited to see Monte. So he's someone that off the top I would like to see start. Maybe he doesn't start, but just looking at what he did in the playoffs, you think you have to give him a chance, because I was looking at the numbers. I knew he was already fantastic because I remember him dropping 28 and 22 against the Blazers in game 5 and 6 and absolutely stepping up. One thing that I didn't realize, I should have known, because he is the assist to turnover god, as I mentioned before. We already know that, but in the playoffs, this man had 7 turnovers in 2 series. 7. And how many assists? Just a light 55 assists. These are the list of players that had similar or better assist to turnover ratio. As you see, none of those guys are primary playmakers or even secondary playmakers. And then you have to go all the way down the list to see Damian Lillard and Joe Ingles. Monte Morris, 55 assists to 7 turnovers is just insane. Is he going to be the guy to step up though? That's what I do question. I do question if he is going to be that guy, because Will Barton and even Austin Rivers probably fit the mold a little bit better with what you're looking for. Jokic is going to create enough offense that maybe you look at Monte and you think we don't need your steadiness with the ball, your playmaking, your pick and roll as much with the first unit, and we just need guys that can move off the ball that are a bit more dynamic offensively. Will Barton is a little bit more dynamic because he's a better three-point shooter and a more high-volume three-point shooter / better off-the-ball creator as well, someone who can cut to the rim, a little bit more explosive and athletic, a bigger guard, and then Austin Rivers similar in some of those aspects as well. In terms of the fit, maybe those guys are a better fit, so maybe we won't see Monte start, but I do want to see him get more opportunity. But realistically, it probably would be Will Barton in the backcourt as the shooting guard, and then alongside him, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Austin Rivers, even Facundo Campazzo, the GOAT himself, given his playmaking, defensive hustle, his just tenacity. The man is just tenacious. We love Facundo Campazzo around here. Obviously a highlight reel when it comes to passing. His shooting is pretty decent as well from outside. Maybe Monte will come off the bench, but I'm still excited to see him. And looking at those guys that I just mentioned in Austin Rivers and Will Barton is the one where I would like to see him step up. He had a little bit of a down season, had injuries, but if he can get back to his 15 to 16 points per game that he was prior to this season and averaging 38% from the three or whatever and being a dynamic scorer off the ball, creating for himself and for others, plus being a pretty good defender, that's what you want. That's the kind of guy that realistically does fit the Jamal Murray mold. Obviously, none of these guys are going to be as good. I don't even need to mention that. You know that. But you're looking at guys who can at least replace some of what Murray brings, and I think Barton is definitely closer to a like-for-like replacement than Morris, so maybe he gets the nod, and alongside him could be someone like Austin Rivers, even Facundo Campazzo. Who knows? But that's my thoughts on the guard rotation. A guard rotation of Monte, Will, PJ Dozier, Facundo Campazzo, Bones Highland, and Rivers, and even Marcus Howard, who played some minutes and was decent. They've got enough guys in the mix to do enough there. Jokic is going to create opportunities. They've got some guys who can self-create as well. If they can play good enough defense, they're going to be fine. The guard rotation, I'm not too worried about. Yes, they don't have the same dynamism with Murray. That's evident, but it's still pretty good. But let's be honest, the nucleus is with Jokic, and to a lesser extent comes with Michael Porter Jr., who will mention Michael Porter Jr. quickly before we get into Jokic. Not quickly, we'll mention MPJ because he's a key part. He is now the second option. There's no two ways about it. Some people questioned if he was going to be the second option. I think we got our answer during the playoffs that Murray is still that guy, and that's no disrespect to MPJ. I just think Murray is that good that he's still the second option, and for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. I just believe that much in Jamal Murray, but that doesn't mean MPJ can't step up, and this is his chance if he wants to prove himself as the second option and really claim that. This is the year because he averaged 22 points a game in the second half of the season. He did step up in those 20 games when Murray was out, and he showed what he could be. At the very least, right now, he is literally a 7-foot Klay Thompson. Is that ridiculous to say? Some people are like, that's blasphemous, that's ridiculous. He just kind of is. Look at the numbers, look at his shooting. The man does not miss many shots at all. He's unbelievable. He's really good off the ball because he's learned how to cut. He's learned how to move alongside Jokic, which is great. So he's got all the off-ball down pat. He's giving you 20 points a game. That's minimum. That's what he's doing. What we want to see him incorporate, become a little bit better of a passer, a little bit better of a playmaker, ball handling as well. His ball handling is a little bit shaky. It is shaky. It's shaky. There's no two ways about that. That's where he needs to improve. If he can become more assertive as a ball handler and as a shot creator for himself, then yeah, he takes that leap to being an all-star level player, and maybe he is the second best player on this team as soon as next year, even with Murray in the fold. That's what you want to see from MPJ, because he does have all-star potential. There's no doubts about that. He probably has potential to be even more than that, given his shooting, given his size, his length. He's improving as a defender. He's improving as a rebounder. He's improving all across the board. Now it's time for his handle to catch up to the rest of his game. In my opinion, that's where I want to see him improve, and I expect him to be 23 to 24 points a game as soon as next year. Jokic, is there too much to mention? MVP for a reason. I also think with Jokic, we need to keep in mind, he's only 26. He's improved every single season. He's got better every single playoffs. The series against Portland was better than the one before, and then the one before. You get the point. He continues to improve, whether it's in the regular season or the playoffs. He continues to get fitter. He continues to add something to his game. He continues to get better defensively. Is there any reason to suggest this guy doesn't have another level to go to? I think you'd be silly to say so. At the very least, this is what we're getting out of him for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. However long he continues to provide at this level, which is scary. That's unbelievable. That's what you're getting. You're getting an offensive engine. There's no two ways about that. Jokic is going to make you a top 10 offense pretty much regardless because of his playmaking, because of his scoring. One of the most efficient scorers in the league. You know about his passing. He's improved defensively. I mean, I could go on. I've talked about Jokic in depth multiple times. You know how I feel. He's unbelievable. He's going to continue to be unbelievable. But I would be watching out for him to potentially even take another leap. And then looking at another guy that they traded for during mid-season. These are the guys that I'm looking at to improve. And as a whole, I'll just talk about the Nuggets team as a whole. For the Nuggets, it always does come down to defense for me. Aaron Gordon is someone that I'm about to mention, and he ties into defense as well. But it comes down to defense. Jokic is the offensive engine that is going to create offense regardless. It's about being good defensively, which is why they made the trade for Aaron Gordon. It's why Jokic has been better as a defender slimmed down, and there's been an emphasis on that. There's been an emphasis on MPJ's defense. There's a reason guys like Austin Rivers have started when the likes of Monte Morris is probably a better overall player. Well, is a better overall player, but those guys bring defense, toughness, Facundo Campazzo as well. That's the mold they're looking for. They're looking to improve defense. So that's where it starts and ends for me when it comes to Denver. Even without Murray, I'm still looking at their defense to step up. And Aaron Gordon, I want to step up just all across the board. I just want an improved season from him. In fairness to him, it's not easy getting traded mid-season. Not that I would know, but it's not easy getting traded mid-season. Going to a different team, he should improve. Is he going to get back to being a 17-point per game kind of score that he was earlier in his career? No, I don't expect that. But if he can be 12 to 14 points a game, add a few assists, and continue to improve as a defender, I want him to be dominant as a defender. I want Aaron Gordon to stamp himself as an all-NBA defender. If he wants to become a championship-level role player, which is what I heard him say, he wants to be that kind of guy, defensively is where it's going to be. Also improving that three-point shot all across the board. Aaron Gordon does need to improve. He wasn't fantastic. I know he had some big defensive performances, don't get me wrong, and he's still a good pickup, don't get me wrong as well, but he does need to improve. Let's hold him to a higher standard because I believe he does have the potential to reach that standard. In terms of some other guys worth mentioning, Jeff Green, fantastic signing, a big upgrade on Paul Millsap. Well, maybe not a big upgrade, but he's just a more consistent shooter, someone who's a fantastic role player. I love that signing. A little side note, Vlatko Čančar, I think he was good in the Olympics from what I saw for Slovenia. I watched every single game of theirs, and he looked pretty good defensively. He showed some handles. He showed some shooting. I wouldn't mind seeing him get some more minutes as well, Vlatko. And I guess I have to mention Bol, don't I? I guess I do, otherwise people will be on my head. Is he going to get minutes? I guess this is the opportunity where you'd think if he is going to ever get a chance, this is his chance. I still struggle to wonder where he fits. He can't really fit with Jokic because you need guys on the perimeter that can really go out there and hunt guys off screens with Jokic, because although Jokic has improved, he's still not the most versatile big man defender. We know that. So with the second unit, maybe he can provide some scoring, some rim protection, just a little bit of versatility. Jack of all trades. I don't know what he's going to do. He's a 7'12" shooting guard. Like, your guess is as good as mine whether he gets enough minutes this season. That's my thoughts on the Nuggets. Am I overly worried about them this season? I expect them to still make the playoffs. I think it's hard to imagine a world in which Jokic, MPJ, and a good supporting cast, which it still is a good supporting cast, with Michael Malone. They already proved last season they could win games. That doesn't make it any less tough, and that's why I'm making this video, because I still believe it's going to be a tough challenge without Murray, but if there's a team capable of doing it, it's probably Denver. Oh, have a good day. Have a good day.